So I was just reading your bio. Okay, hold on. I want to say this. Nutritional practitioner. What is it? Functional nutrition therapy practitioner. What
Yes.
is that exactly, specifically?
So it's like a cross between like what a naturopath does and a nutrition coach put together.
Okay.
Yeah. So we bring in functional lab testing with our clients, not to diagnose or anything along those lines, but to see where the dysfunction is happening in the body. And then
Mm,
we work with nutrition and lifestyle standpoint to help support and bring the body back in balance.
awesome. And so do you primarily work with women?
We mostly do. We do work with men. It usually ends up being our clients' partners and things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I have one of my friends, Clint, and they have a nutritional company, but I know the blood testing is a big part of that just to see where there is imbalance so you know what you're handling.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you guys test
Um,
for? Is it like a whole gamut of like food allergies? Is it mostly hormones or what are you testing for?
we can test that. It really depends on the symptoms that the person has. So one of the main tests that we do is a stool test. It's called the GI map. We can see any pathogens, microbiome breakdown, how they're actually digesting, absorbing, and using their food. Um, it depends on what we're looking for and and what the person is experiencing or what we suspect based on symptoms, past history, and things. But
Mm.
we do a whole host from saliva, urinary, stool, and then we do blood work as well too.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. So you do the gamut and it sounds very personalized.
Yeah, I do not do the testing, but we send it out. Most people can do it in their home except for the blood work.
Right. Yeah, the stool sample, you're they're not coming to you for that to help them with that.
Absolutely.
And I struggle with that. Like at my age, I'm supposed to take a colonoscopy and I'm like, or they're like, it's fine if you don't want to come in and do this home kit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll come in. I don't want to do this home kit.
I've had one person who literally refused to do it because it was a stool test, but
Yeah.
most of our clients are moms. So I'm like, you've wiped somebody else's butt at some point, so we can, take a couple samples of our own stool.
Well, I guess when you put it that way. Have you found that there's like a common denominator or something you see more than others, or is it just all over the place?
So one of the biggest things we see comes down to foundational nutrition, foundational digestive practices. And so we really tell clients, we're looking at your tests, not to diagnose, but to see where the dysfunction is happening. But at the end of the day, even seeing what's coming back on your test is still
Mm,
the symptom. It's not the root cause, right? So the root cause is whatever led to that dysfunction being there in the first place. So we really work through a lot of the lifestyle factors and things that are coming in. So testing wise, the biggest thing that we see from like a stool sample, for example, is that people are actually not digesting, absorbing, and breaking down their food properly. And it's leading to deeper digestive issues in the gut because of it. So if we could just get people to like slow down, make sure you're sitting
mm.
when you eat your food, chew your food properly, stop rushing places, people would probably be shocked at what it could offset for them.
Quit eating on the go and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yes, we see a lot of, I'm running out the door, or eating a meal, or eating in my car, or eating at my desk, that kind of stuff.
Interesting. And then do you go deeper as far as like, well, what's creating that, which is then creating that in your body? That seems like that might be part of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the testing is kind of the first step. So we can see symptomatically, why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? But one of the bigger things that we work through behind the scenes with a client, one-on-one is, okay, what is your lifestyle like? What are your stressors? How do you manage them?
Mm.
We're not your therapist, but at the end of the day, coaching is a huge piece of, how are we shifting the way that we're doing stuff? Because if you want to feel different, we got to do something different. So, and then nutrition, we really take a huge look at nutrition and not only what should you be eating, but also
Mm.
why are you choosing what you're choosing, and how can we help support you so that we can make better choices for how you want to feel.
I see. And is there like specific diets that you put people on? Is it again just totally individualized?
We believe eating as close to like the farm and field as you possibly can, so the less processed, the
Mm.
more natural source of food that you can
Yeah.
get, we believe is the way that your body was designed to get it. Therapeutically, there are some diets that you can put people on if they're like, for example, if there's candida in somebody's gut, you might
Mm.
need to follow more of a, anti-candida based diet for a short period of time. But no one should ever be on a, restrictive therapeutic based diet for a long period of time. You should be able to eat a variety of foods. And if you can't, then that's when the question comes in of what's going on for why not.
Interesting. So you're more about like well balanced overall, that sort of thing. Because like for myself, I'm on keto, so it's a very limited, but I love it and I'm fine with that. But I get it's also not the most balanced meal I could be eating either.
There are a lot of people who do really well on keto, and it really comes down to the individual person. So the lab testing, can tell us a lot on the individual person and what your body is meant to respond its best to. If you're in a state of hormonal dysfunction and there's a lot of stress going on, then not having carbohydrates may not be the best place. But if you're in a place where you do have a lot of candida overgrowth and things that love carbs and thrive off of them, and we're trying to get rid of them, then actually being more low carb is actually a better route for us to go. So it can very much depend on the person, but we do really emphasize a protein heavy diet. Because it's critically important just overall as we age hormonally, especially when we're talking body composition, and weight loss is a priority focus for a lot of our clients as well as, fibers and getting a variety of different phytonutrients and things in your meal. We do see that fat, and I mean, I love that the keto diet emphasizes this, but fat is a huge one that especially women still, I mean, I grew up in Snackwell's generation, so feared a lot. And we still have to have conversations around how critically important fat is for you.
Healthy fat. Yeah. I mean, I even struggle with my son. He's like, oh, get the fat free. I'm like, no, do you realize fat free means they're like jacking it up with sugar? Like fat's not bad, but he struggles with weight. So anytime he hears fat, he thinks bad. And I'm like, damn it. No, that's not right.
That and the cholesterol, the fear around it's going to raise my cholesterol. And we really try to emphasize to people, fat in your food does not equal fat in your body, and cholesterol in your food does not directly transfer to cholesterol in your blood.
Right.
So it's really important to know. One of our main things that we love to do with our clients is just to really empower them to understand why you're doing what you're doing, so that our goal, as weird as it sounds, is that you don't need us at some point and you can make those decisions on your own, because we want people to feel empowered in their body so you can make the right health decisions for yourself, 10 years from now, 20 years from now too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the goal of my business too. It's like, I'd be stoked if I went out of business someday because I just didn't have enough clients to help. That would be a great problem this world has.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. I like how you do the educational piece, because I do think there's so little. Well, first of all, there's tons of information out there. So it's difficult for someone to like filter through all of it and see what's actually true for them. But also your educational component, because as we see, like even with that, like the food pyramid scheme, it's so wrong. And that's what is passing as our education in America as far as what we should be eating. So I'm really glad that you're like educating people so they can make good decisions.
Yeah, it's not just with us too. We have a lot of clients who go to the doctor or are going, to see a specialist or something, and they're scared to ask questions, and they intuitively feel like what they're being told is not right, or they're not really being heard, but they're scared to, say something. And it's not that we want you, fighting with everybody, but that relationship really should be a partnership. So, as you're getting older, the more you understand about how your own body functions as a woman, and it's especially for women, it's something that hasn't really been a big focus in healthcare for women's health. If you could truly understand how those things are actually processing in your body and what's actually impacting it, you can have more of a partnership in your healthcare and feel more empowered about making the right decision for yourself.
Well, and I think you hit it on the head. Like, this is why so many women don't do it, because they want to go where their insurance pays. Their doctor sees them for 5 minutes. It's basically just triage. Tell me what your symptom is. Oh, here's what it is. The doctors don't take the time to deep dive that, run the test. How are you feeling? What did you eat today to make you feel that? There's none of that. They just want to like, give me your symptoms. Okay, here's what I think it is. Here's your medication. Bye. Hopefully I don't have to see you again. Like, there's not that relationship like used to be built with your general practitioner.
Yeah, it's not. One, they don't have the time. And even if the doctor does want to spend the time, they can't.
Yep.
And that's the tough thing when it comes to that. So they don't have, the hour that we take with a client to sit down and ask about, what is your health history? What is your relationship with food? Why are you choosing these things? So it is really challenging. We have a lot of people who come to us who will say, this is the most I've been listened to. And I'm like, I'm really sorry because I'm not your doctor, right? You should be listened to in a different manner.
Yeah. But again, this is where almost like holistic medicine, I think everybody should do it. But, I know you guys struggle. Insurance probably doesn't pay for you guys, right? So then it's like people have to come out of pocket to get quality care when they're already paying so much for their insurance. They're like, why should I have to? But really, it's what you have to do if you want to get quality care.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if we did go through an insurance route. And
Yeah.
that's why we do really want people to leave knowing how their body feels, because we know you shouldn't have to pay us forever and we don't want you to have to pay us forever. And it is an investment in your health.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, it is a privilege to be able to pay for it. And it's tough. But we really believe that if we can work and help shift the narrative and really create a change with it, it starts with just us working with the people who can.
I like that. And are you big? Do you also try to encourage exercise as part of everything?
Yeah. So actually my background is in personal training, is where I first
Oh, nice.
started in the health and fitness
Mhm.
field, over 16 years ago at this point. And about midway through my career, my dad passed away, from cancer really suddenly. And just the whole the way it transpired really shifted my perspective of health, because I was like, man, there's something deeper to this than just looking good in a bathing suit. While, that's okay to want to, I really wanted to start shifting and looking at what's the preventative side and how can these kinds of things be shifted so this isn't the narrative for, my kids. And so that really led me to explore more of the functional route. My body went haywire after I lost my dad, just from the trauma and the stress of it. My
Mm.
hormones tanked, my thyroid tanked. I soon met my husband after that. We were trying to get pregnant and we struggled with getting pregnant with my daughter because my body was not in the best spot. And that really pushed me into the journey that we're on now. So I went back to school for our 2-year functional program. And that really shifted the way that we work with clients now because of it.
And I mean, first of all, that's amazing. And also cool that you deep dove like what was happening with your body and looking at that as a solution, as opposed to, okay, you're right, I'm going through stress. Let me just get on some medications for this and this and this. And at some point, maybe I won't be stressed and I'll be off of it. But you went the more like deeper route of like, well, let's really see what's creating this.
I was super frustrated because I was going to physicians and I knew enough to know that my thyroid was off. Something was not right with what was going on. And I was not getting any answers. I was just getting asked, blanketed questions. And I intuitively knew enough to know that what I was getting told wasn't the right answer. So I kept seeking out different physicians, trying to find different routes. And I didn't really know a lot about a naturopathic approach at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I was leaving doctors' offices in tears, calling my mom saying, like, I don't know what's going on, but I know my body does not feel like my body and something is wrong. And so I finally was told about a naturopath in the area, went and saw him, had my blood work done, and a lot of areas on my thyroid that were missing. And for the first time, I actually felt heard and actually had answers to what was going on with myself. And I kept reflecting back on a lot of my clients and thinking, oh my gosh, I've had so many clients who, wanted to lose weight and just couldn't get the result despite feeling like they were doing everything. I wonder how many of them were feeling this way too, and just didn't have the capacity to maybe dig in and do the research that I was doing. It's always been in my nature to be a little bit rebellious. So we can, call it that as it is and just say that I just wanted to go against the grain. I'm not sure, but I'm happy I did. And I'm happy I kept digging.
Well, rebellious, I get that. That's like my number one core value. But also, we know, I think a lot of us intuitively truth. And like you said, you were
Yes.
searching for truth and you weren't getting it anywhere from licensed professionals that should be the ones delivering the truth. And when you're not getting that answer, you start to think, is it me? But you kind of know it isn't, but yet you're being told it is.
Yeah. I was starting to think, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't actually know anything about nutrition and exercise because I'm doing all the stuff that, like, I
Mm.
know what you should do right on paper. I'm eating in the calorie deficit, I'm doing the workouts, right? But I'm not getting the answers. And, there were pieces to it that, like, yes, I was doing the stuff, but also there's a huge piece that I was missing of the stress and the trauma my body had just endured of my dad passing away. So that is a huge piece that I think is also not talked about too,
Yeah.
is the amount of, chronic stress and traumas and how those things can actually influence how your body is functioning and how you're feeling in it too.
Yeah, there's an amazing book, and I'm sure you've heard of it, about The Body Keeps a Score.
Yes. Yeah.
And like you read that, and obviously it's kind of extreme because the guy's dealing with, pediatrics and massive trauma done to children. And so it's like, well, of course you're going to see it there, but
Yeah.
it's real for all of us. And like the big thing that I had to realize this year is like trauma doesn't always mean like something horrific, like,
Yes.
molesting or death. It could be my parents got a divorce. It could be,
Yeah.
I failed a class in school. Like there's trauma is trauma, and we don't realize it or recognize it or think it's a problem because we're thinking it has to be this something really big, but a lot of times it's really not. But I love the premise that it stores in your body and the body
Yeah.
always knows.
We see a lot of women after they've had kids as well. One of
Mm.
my practitioners is a doula and pre-postnatal. And women don't often think of having a child as a trauma because we think of trauma as a bad word, right? But,
Mhm.
having a baby, as beautiful as it is a trauma on your body. You literally
Yeah.
create a human and then you birth a human. And your body is in survival mode for several months after you have that. But in today's world, so many women don't really take that time to restore and let their body
Mhm.
recoup like it needs to. We jump right back into things. And it's no wonder that we see women 3, 4, 5 years after they've had a child, and they're like, I just don't know what's wrong. I can't figure it out. And something's not feeling right. I don't feel like myself. And then we're reflecting back and they haven't felt like themselves since they had a kid.
Yeah. Well, and then, I think now there is more awareness, but it's just, oh, it's postpartum. Here's your antidepressant. At some
Yeah.
point you're going to feel better, as
Yeah.
opposed to like, well, let's look at your sleep deprived. That's a big part of it. But what are you feeding your body when you are, actually eating, or how are you taking care of this? Because it doesn't end when the baby ends. I mean, for a lot of us, we breastfeed. So now we're still giving and giving and giving and creating while still doing all this other stuff and dealing all that. So I love that you put a lot of emphasis on that, because I never looked at it this way. And I should have, because I was literally in the hospital after I delivered my son, an emergency C-section that I was like knocked out for. I was doing payroll because that was my job and that's what I should do. Like I took no
Yeah.
time off. It's like, well, no wonder, Andrew. Like there was some shit there that I hadn't been able to deal with that existed due to how the childbirth had gone and everything,
Yeah.
that goes with it.
After I had my daughter, she's going to be almost 6, but I'm in the fitness industry. I put so much pressure on myself that I needed to bounce back super quick after having a baby and be some example. And I was trying to be the example in the wrong way. And I did it at the sacrifice of my body to get back into my clothes and fit comfortably in them.
Mm.
And I didn't realize until about 9 to 10 months when I was postpartum, my husband had said something that like should not have really like made me angry, but it set me off and I was getting so much anxiety. I had no idea I was dealing with postpartum anxiety because I just thought it was something that was going to happen right after I had the baby. But nobody talked to me about how the postpartum anxiety could have been a result of the way that I wasn't caring for my body and giving it what it needed after I had my daughter, or how my hormones could be coming into play, or how my gut health could have been playing a role into my neurotransmitter modulation in my body. And no one was talking to me about those things. And I am so happy I found this before we had our son, because my pregnancies and postpartums were massively different from each other with that. And I really don't want any other mom to feel that way either, because you don't need to.
Well, and I love that you're doing this. And this is why this just has to get out, because I just don't think, and I only assume that there's thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of mothers that are just like you were and I were, and there's no knowledge out there. So we just think it's us. Like, man
Yeah.
up, you get
Yeah.
with it, like figure it out.
Or you feel like you're a bad mom, or you're
Right.
struggling in motherhood, and how can all these people figure it out and I can't? Um,
Mm.
And you're not. Everybody is actually dealing with it behind the scenes. It's just a matter of not getting the help and support that they need.
How much do you think hormones play a part in that? Like, I don't know. Well, obviously through pregnancy, you get the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But do you think that just hormone regulation is a big part of the overall well-being and feelings?
So your hormones are very often where you're experiencing the symptoms.
Okay.
And they can really influence, especially as a female, how you feel energetically, cognitively. They can play a huge role in that. But your hormones are a responder. So they're not actually usually, sometimes they can be, but they're not usually a root issue. But they are usually where we feel it the most. So we often will correlate to like, well, I'm experiencing PMS or I'm experiencing this, so my hormones must be the problem. But your hormones are responding to the environment. So your
Mm.
hormones need proper nutrients to function and thrive. They need nervous system regulation to function and thrive. They need your gut to be in a good place to help support the detoxification and circulation of them. And they need your adrenals and blood sugar regulation to be in a good spot in order for them to function properly too. So anytime we see hormonal dysfunction with
Mm.
someone, we're really looking at how is the gut, how is your blood sugar regulation, and how are your meals set up to help support that, how is your stress management, and then how is your nervous system regulation, because a lot of times we, especially with young moms, especially postpartum, right, we are in sympathetic overdrive and we are stimulated all the time. We're not sleeping at night, so we're not recovering from it. So it makes sense, and it's no wonder that women, postpartum are experiencing more and more depression and anxiety and things, because your hormones are absolutely playing a role, but they're not usually the root issue
Mm.
into it. But especially in a postpartum scenario, your endocrine system takes a huge hit after you have a baby. And a lot of times women aren't able to fully recover from it the way that they need to. So it's almost a double whammy. It's that you just took this huge hit on your endocrine system and then you weren't able to recover. And then now you have all like your disrupted sleep, you're not getting the nutrients, all these other stressors that are coming into play. So it's layers to it, but absolutely your hormones are definitely influencing how you're feeling.
Damn, it's amazing we've survived as well as we have. Like thinking about all
Yeah.
that stuff and how lack of all of it, like I had and you had. So yeah, it's amazing we survived all that shit.
But also, like, how incredible your body is that it's able
Yeah,
to carry you through all of that at the same
true.
time, right? We spend so much time hating our body and talking awful about
Mhm.
it. But also, I tell people all the time, I'm like, despite all of that, your body still wakes you up every day and carries you through all the stuff that you have to keep up with.
Absolutely. So then, and this has come up so much in the last couple of years. It's crazy. I mean, I've even done it myself. Is somatic therapy something you guys do as well?
We actually have a somatic breathwork practitioner that comes in
Mm.
once a month and does breath work with our clients. I love somatic therapies, and there's, multiple ways that you can do them. I always encourage people to have more tools in the tool belt and,
Mhm.
choose the ones that feel good to you, but also the ones that you need in the moment. If you're mentally overstimulated, maybe a breath work is an option for you.
Mhm.
If you physically feel like there's a lot of things going on, even yoga is a somatic, workout. So I love it, and I'm a huge proponent of it.
Same. Yeah, I do hot yoga. So for me, I'm like killing two birds with one stone. It's like I'm
Yeah,
I'm detaxing, I'm sweating, I'm working out, and I'm doing the somatic work at the same time.
same. That's my
That's like
methodology
a
for myself.
win-win-win right
Yes.
there.
If I have to be here stretching, I might as well be sweating at the same time when I'm here. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and the whole purpose, and just for our listeners who aren't sure, of somatic therapy is that learning to regulate your nervous system, right? Because we go into fight, flight, or freeze, and that's the body's natural way of dealing with whatever trauma's coming at us. And this teaches us how to be in control of that, so that those I guess reactions don't come into play, and we're
Yeah.
calming them when they do.
Our clients ask what somatic means, and it really just means of the body.
Hmm.
And I, in a simple form, like to, it's not really what it's doing, but I like to say it's kind of resetting your energy in your body. We're really essentially retraining that response and resetting the energy that you're carrying, whether if it's a negative energy, a stressed out energy, an anxious energy, we're kind of taking that moment to reset it and shift you back into a more regulated place.
Mm, I love that. And I also think a lot of, you have to become aware of it too, because we don't always know. We just think, oh God, I got a, stomach ache, or yeah, I'm going to go talk. No wonder, we just, almost justify these different things our bodies are telling us instead of going, well, why is my body telling me that right now? And is that okay? Or can we change the way it is? We can still do what we got to do, but we don't have to suffer the side effect, which is our body just communicating there's something else going on.
I love, if you're in that place where you're trying to just kind of get back in tune with your body. I know this is tedious, but taking some time to just journal and check in with where you're at, of like, okay, I noticed a stomach ache. What did I eat a couple hours ago? What did I eat this morning? How did I sleep last night? I'm feeling really stressed out right now. What's my last, 6 hours been like? Have I been really stimulated? The TV's on, I'm on my phone, I'm on the computer. And really just tune into what's the environment around you when you're starting to feel those things.
I think that's great takeaways and tools, because, juxtapositioning that against what if you go to a doctor because you're feeling this way, they're like, diagnosis, medication, that's how you handle it, which is not handling it. You're just like band-aiding it and being labeled something, as opposed to like trying to do a little research as to, well, what's creating that? And it's okay if my body feels this way. It's telling me something. Listen to it. Don't ignore it and like mask it. Like dive into that and figure out what's causing it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, right? I think so often we get into like a shame, guilt type scenario where we feel like something is wrong with us, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a matter of really tuning into your body is intelligent and it is talking to you. And we're going to use words. Your body is using symptoms to let you know. And you can really start to tune into and really listen to your body if you just take some time to kind of backtrack and take some time to tune in.
I love that. But it takes work. It really, you've got to spend the time. You've got to be willing to do that. You've got to recognize, and like you said, journal. And I think a lot of people, especially in today's society, we're just programmed to, just take something if you don't like the way you feel. Don't waste your time doing all that kind of stuff. Like, here, just fix it. And that's not really a fix. It's really just a Band-Aid, which is going to create other physical symptoms that you're now like fixing or taking more stuff for. So it doesn't actually fix anything. It just masks what needs to be done.
It's funny, we just did a talk yesterday with a group of moms, and one of them were telling me that pre-having their child, they were on birth control. And then they came off birth control, got pregnant, and then now, since they've had their cycles back, since they had their daughter, she's feeling terrible. And she's like, my cycles are awful. And I was like, well, what, if I'm curious, why did you go on birth control in the first place? Was it actually birth control, or were there other reasons? And at least 90% of the time, there's another reason why someone went on birth control in the first place. And it wasn't actually for contraceptive use. A lot of it was exactly that, a Band-Aid solution to the hormonal symptoms that they were experiencing. But no one ever explained to them, and a lot of this happens when we're teenagers, no one ever explained to them as a teenager. Now, regardless, I say, I was 16 when I went on it. I may not have made a different decision at that point, because when I was 16, I thought I was invincible and nothing was ever going to affect me, right? So may or may not, but I wish I would have been told, right, how birth control actually shuts down your body's communication with your hormones and interferes in that process. And anytime we're shutting down and interfering in a process in your body, there's going to be a consequence that comes of it. And it doesn't actually take away the problem for what you're experiencing. It's just temporarily removing it. But there's also consequences from that too. We see a lot of candida issues, GI issues from women who have been on birth control. And, women come off of it and are so frustrated for why they're feeling terrible. It's because that root issue was never actually addressed. And it usually comes back tenfold.
Interesting. Yeah. Cause they're more worried about, I'm bleeding profusely, I'm emotional. Like this is why I went on it in the first place, but they're not realizing that's all okay. And it's just your body telling you something else.
Yeah. And
it's not okay. It sucks. We're women having to deal with that. But at the same time, it's natural. It's normal. We've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. And
if you want to take a birth control or a contraceptive, then absolutely make an informed decision to do that, right? But also know what it is doing to your body, so you can know how you can support your body while you are on it. So it's not such a difficult thing when you do choose to come off of it at some point as well.
Yeah, I like that. Do you feel like the IUDs have the same effect as like taking an oral contraceptive?
It can be a little bit different. You do have a vaginal microbiome, so some of them can interfere with the vaginal microbiome, and it depends. So there are non-hormonal IUDs,
Mhm.
like the copper IUD.
Mhm.
So that can be a little bit better. You also are, putting a metal in your body with copper when you do that. So you could be dealing with the impacts of heavy metals in your system. It really just depends on the person, but hormonal birth control, whether it's coming in an IUD form or coming in a pill form, are trying to do similar things. So it is shifting and it is coming with a consequence. Just what consequence it comes with can just be very dependent on the person.
I like that. And again, if you just are given as an individual, like all the pros and cons and facts for each thing, you can make an informed decision and say, okay, maybe I don't necessarily like how that makes me feel, but I like not having these side effects. Or likewise, I can deal with that side effect if I'm handling this situation. At least it puts them in control of understanding and being causative and making good decisions for themselves.
Yeah, no option is 100% guarantee, right? And I think that that's sometimes what we forget. We think that birth control is 100% guarantee. It's not. There are other options and methods you can go with. You just really need to know the risk that you're taking with any of the methods and decide which method is best for you.
Yeah, I like that. So when you are working with people, and we talked about exercise because you're a trainer, what kind of exercises do you promote or encourage? What do you think is the best?
Strength training is one of the number one things that
Yeah.
we'll encourage for anyone. We're talking no matter what age you are, no matter what goal you have, strength training has a benefit for you.
Yeah.
And if your goal is body composition, I think that one's pretty obvious, right? We're talking about building lean mass. If you want a better metabolic function, strength training is huge for that. The more lean mass you have on your body, the better metabolic function you can have. Hormonally, the benefits are significant. And then especially as we age, a lot of our clients are anywhere between 30 to 50. And I always say the age of 30 to 50, especially 30s and early 40s, is the time that you actually do want to prep your body for menopausal stages. Because when we go through that shift, your bone health becomes a huge focus and as well
Mm.
because of your hormonal impact on your bone health and the hormonal shifts that occur. Strength training and any weight bearing activity is incredibly beneficial to supporting vitality and long-term bone health. So the sooner you can start that, the sooner you can feel better as you age. And whatever the specific individual goal is at this point, strength training has a benefit in there too. So we usually will always encourage at a foundational level bigger muscle lifts, so deadlifts, squats, push pull type motions.
Mhm.
And then making sure there's adequate rest break in between there. And then depending on the person, depending on the stress level, off days, hit workouts done in the proper manner, not your
Mhm.
45-minute type class, can actually be wildly beneficial as well. But at a foundational level, we encourage people to just be walking and getting daily movement. So if you don't have the time for all these things, getting daily movement and getting 3 strength training sessions in a week is a phenomenal place to begin.
I love that. And then of course throw in the hot yoga like we have.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you're really well rounded. You're hitting it from every angle, I think.
Yeah, personally, I really love kettlebell workouts right now. It's just
Mm-hmm.
something I have personally been doing, and I do those 3 to 4 days a week, and I do a yoga class 1 to 2, and that's what feels really good to me right now. So we also encourage our clients, once you've built a really good foundation, it's really just having fun with it at that point too. And I'll go through I don't really have any specific goals right now, so I'll go through different phases. And right now, I'm just really enjoying the one I'm in.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Cause I get bored. So like if I'm doing the
Yes.
same thing every day, it's leg day, it's back day. Well, I mean, it's why I like CrossFit because it's always different and I don't have to think about it. But I think it's and like you said, we especially like even myself, I'm like at a different place in my life where I've actually built the body that I love. So now
Yeah.
it's about, okay, well, how do I maintain that? Which looks totally different than getting to where I'm at.
Yeah, you got to build the foundation first, right? Before we do all the fun stuff. One of my friends owns a CrossFit gym near here, and I go, once a week sometimes, and it's fun. I always love to relate it to a house. When you're building a house, the decorating and the putting the wallpaper up, right? All this stuff is fun, but the foundation has to be strong for any of those things to be in a good spot, and for me to put wallpaper up and not have the walls fall in, right? It's the same thing with your body. You've got to have a really good, strong built foundation before we get to do all the fun things added in there. So it's really important to know what that foundation needs to be for you. If you're not doing any strength training, you need to know how to move your body appropriately before you start jumping into bigger things too.
I think that's key. And I know for myself, that was really big for me in the beginning because I so lacked motivation. I had to hire somebody to show up at my house at 6 a.m, knocking on the door. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go work out now. But it's what I needed to like get me to get in gear to do what I needed to do. I had to be
Yes.
financially invested. I had to have somebody like literally showing up at my house that I couldn't turn away. And then I had to obviously do the work. But then you start doing that long enough. And then, like you said, now you've got a foundation where you can start to do other things or, get a little more not less disciplined, because when you don't have somebody showing up and it's up to you to just go do it, you still need like just as much, if not more discipline. So not more discipline, but you're more willing and wanting because you're starting to see and feel the results.
Yeah, maybe less structure to it, right? I don't have
That's
to
the
be
word.
so
Yeah.
regimented about it,
Hmm.
but I can play with it and I can
Hmm.
have fun with it and do what feels good to me in those times too.
I love that. Do you get your 6-year-old to work out with you?
So we have a gym in our house.
Yeah.
We have it in the basement. So I love that my husband is also in the fitness field, that they get to see us doing those things.
Yeah.
And um, the conversations about it are very different than what I experienced growing up. My mom's conversation about working out was always to get the fat off her body, how she said it. And my daughter sees us talking about how it makes us strong, it makes us feel good. We do it because it helps our health. So I love when she wants to come take part. They'll ask to at least come down and like they'll do squats, or she'll try push-ups or little things in there with us.
Aw, I think that's the best. Yeah, one of my guys that works for me, he has his son out there doing like sprints with him. He's only like 3 years old, so it's super
Yeah.
cute. But he's like got the wall ball and he's carrying it and he's sprinting down the street, and this ball's like almost bigger than him. But I was like,
Yep.
oh, almost envious because I didn't quite raise my kids that way because I was still figuring out my own health and fitness the whole time they
Yeah.
were growing up. But man, it looks like it's so cool and so fun to like sort of train your kids on that at such a young age.
And it can happen at any age too, right?
Yeah.
Training them at a younger age is easier, I guess, in some senses that they get to see it and they're conditioned to it. But at any age, I think it's awesome if you're starting it to have a conversation with your kids of why, right? And saying like, oh, I'm going to start doing this because it makes me feel good, and I'm starting to shift the way I do stuff because I learned this, right? We don't always know better, but once we know better, we can do better too.
Yeah, I was fortunate with my son. He when he was younger, and I looking back and everything you said, I was going probably through some massive postpartum like physical stuff for years and didn't even realize it due to that lack of recovery and everything else. And so his younger years were I did not model well for him. But then when I really said, oh shoot, look what I've created with this fast food and just it's terrible. And so I tried to model, what it looks like now. And fortunately for him, getting into sports and conditioning and that, and then hopefully, seeing like maybe mom didn't have figured out when she was younger, but I saw her make those moves when she got older, kind of laid the foundation. And he still lifts, gosh, like 4 or 5 times a week and is crushing it. So must have done something right at some point.
Yes, definitely. I think sports is an awesome place for kids to go to, right? Because they see that. And I think when they see it modeled there, and I see more and more sports teams having more conversations around eating healthier, and pushing your body to be better at sports and things too, which I think is awesome. When I played sports, that was never a conversation. So I always just worked out when I played sports because that's just what we had to do. And then when I stopped playing sports, it wasn't a part of my life for a little bit of time. And I didn't really have a good foundation built within that.
I love that. And you're right. A lot of it's got to come from education because, at Elevate, we have CrossFit and yoga. But if they're eating like crap outside of it. They're doing all this hard work and they're like, I'm fixed, right? And you're like, well, no, but what is like the rest of your day and your 90% of your day
Yes.
look like? You're doing this like hard work in the gym, but then you're eating like crap and you're not going to feel better, which isn't going to lay a good foundation when you're going out there and trying to live soberly because you're still eat like crap, even though you may go to the gym once in a while. That's not really handling the problem. And so like, it's so important to educate people on how much food and nutrition plays a part in everything.
Yeah. The workout, I always say, is the long-term dividend that you get, right? It's the long-term investment into your body and into your health. And I don't want it to downplay, right, how important it is. But part of the reason I switched from being a trainer into the field that we're in now is I was seeing how much of, okay, I'm only getting my clients for 1 hour at the most, maybe 3 times a week. And the rest of their week has a large influence on the results that they are not getting and how they're feeling. So how can I influence those areas of their life as well? Because you could choose to not work out, which I wouldn't encourage, but you could choose to not do it and still see physical benefits and results. But you could still go work out, but the benefit and result you would see if you only did the workout and no other changes would be much smaller than the other way around. So it's really important. I think I still see it a lot where it's like, all right, I'm going to get healthier. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, but then outside of that, I'm still not eating great. And I'm like, you actually could maybe take a couple of those hours that you're going to the gym and spend it on prepping food and make a bigger difference in how you're feeling during the week too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there comes the work, and I think this is where people struggle, or they'll try it for like 2 weeks and I didn't see the results and I'm doing all this work. So why do I want to even continue this? And it's like, well, you've got to give it enough time and consistency to get to the point where you're going to like see the results. Like in the meantime, check in. How does it feel? Yes. And I don't think we're really taught on that either. We're just like looking at the scale, looking in the mirror and not seeing it.
Yep. I love that you said, how does it feel too? I always ask our clients, how do you want to feel? And then take the action that is aligned with how you want to feel, right? If working out makes you feel the way you want to feel in your body, then work out more often because it's making you feel the way you want to. So in you taking action on how you want to feel consistently is going to lead to you looking the way you want to look, right? But if you're not taking action on that, I think it's kind of flipping around our mindset, but we get so stuck on I'm only doing this for the physical results. Then the question is, after you get the physical result, what do you do? Because if you're only doing it till you get to a certain point, you have to look at this as what's the lifelong journey and what I'm doing, right? Like we just talked about, now I've built the foundation, I got the physical result, but I'm still doing this, but now I'm playing with it and I'm having fun with it. So you have to look at, I'm going to work out for the rest of my life. I'm going to eat healthier food for the rest of my life. And the way that I do those things is going to change throughout my life. It's not always going to be the same, but you have to have a foundational commitment to doing the basics and doing them consistently. And it doesn't mean I don't ever eat a cookie, right? I eat cookies. I like cheesecake too, but
do you like pizza?
I do like pizza.
Yeah, same. That's my favorite cheap food.
Yeah. Well, how consistently I choose those things, right, is vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exactly. And if we give in to all the things that we really like, most of them aren't always really good for us. And then then they end up with me.
Yes. Yeah. So instead of the on again, off again, right? It's what are my lifelong commitments to this? And what are the small little shifts that I can make throughout my life to keep making me feel the way I want to feel first?
I like that. So as part of your program, is there a lot of implementation of like supplements, medications, or is it strictly food and exercise?
Not medication, that's out of our scope, but supplementally, yes. So first, when we work with a client, we're working with them at a minimum of 6 months because we start out with the testing. While we're waiting on the test results to come back, we're usually working through a lot of what we would say is like the foundation. So are you eating adequate protein? Are you moving your body consistently? How are you sleeping at night, managing your stressors, et cetera? We're really instilling some consistency with some of those things. And then once we get the test results back, we're seeing what's going on in the body. We use supplements most supplements in a very short-term manner to help correct what is happening in the body. So if we notice that your progesterone is really low, we're going to bring in some supplements that are known to help support your progesterone production. If we see that there's a pathogen in your gut, we're going to bring in some supplements to help get rid of that pathogen so we can bring more balance into the gut so things can function better. So we don't always necessarily put supplements out until we see the testing, so they can be very specific and individual, because there's also a lot of supplements that can create a bigger problem if we don't actually know what's going on in the body first. So that's usually how we do it. And then we have foundational supplements that after we've, done a lot of the deeper work through with a client, we'll start to bring in what we call like a maintenance type stage. So using a protein powder if you need it because whole foods aren't available to you in a moment, or, taking magnesium, taking a multivitamin, things like that, and really working through individually for that person.
Is there certain supplements like you would just recommend everybody take for the rest of their lives, or like what?
Definitely a probiotic,
Okay.
but a quality one. So we really love a spore-based probiotic, is really beneficial. One, the survivability of it as actually getting into the gut is a lot better.
Mm.
But they really help to repopulate. And then a prebiotic source. So a lot of us don't get enough fruits and veggies as our prebiotic food sources. So taking a prebiotic, rich supplement can be really beneficial as well. Those are two mains. Magnesium is an awesome one, especially
Mm.
for women. Magnesium glycinate is one
I
of the
take
best.
it every single day. It's like the one thing I do take is calcium and magnesium. Like that's my non-negotiable.
Yeah, I always say magnesium specifically. Calcium
Mhm.
can be up to the person if we need to have
Mhm.
it in there, but magnesium is wildly beneficial for sleep, hormonal production. Usually we're all managing some stress some way, shape, or form, and magnesium is usually one of the first minerals to be depleted. So magnesium is a common one we would put in as well. And then also just a protein powder can be a really beneficial one. If you do struggle to get adequate protein from whole foods, having something like that on hand can be beneficial as well too.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with all that. So then will you retest, like say after a month, after 2 months, so that you could see like if you're making progress or more things crop up or that sort of thing?
It depends on the tests that we're doing, and symptomatically, how somebody is feeling, but usually yes. So minimum of 3 months is usually when we will retest people, but definitely by the end of that 6 months, we're pulling in some retests. If we do blood work, we usually start with a full comprehensive panel, and we see that just the thyroid needs to be relooked.
Mhm.
So we'll just recheck the thyroid sometimes. Sometimes it's not necessary for us to do a full panel on everything.
I like that. Now, and also as part of what you guys offer is a group, like a community. Is that more?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more of that.
We do two components. One, I've got three other practitioners that work for me, and they each have their own specialty. So one of them is a clinical therapist, one specializes in gut health, and then one, like I said, is a doula and a pre-postnatal. We have a group component when everyone works with us, and a lot of that group component, we have group coaching calls that happen on a weekly basis, as well as like our somatic breathwork practitioner that comes in. So we do host those things like a membership type option on a monthly basis and weekly basis as well. And the goal of a lot of those is to really give the education and understanding into why you're doing what you're doing. So
Mhm.
they're usually topic specific. My therapist will come on and do some deeper talks into anxiety and how it's showing in your body and tools and things to work through it. And then behind the scenes, we're working one-on-one with the clients in their testing, what they're doing individually. We're doing weekly check-ins, we're doing one-on-one calls and things to work through their own individual environment at the same time too.
Is there like, do people look forward to like that community support and, that sort of thing? I mean, because community is huge with me. Like that's the
Yeah.
clients, that's their favorite part about everything with us is the community.
It's one of my favorite pieces for sure, because
Mhm.
I always try to emphasize to people, a lot of times our clients are coming in and there's nobody else in their life who's trying to take action on being healthier, or they're the leader in their home who,
Mhm.
provides the food or, shifts the narrative and things in their home. So sometimes they don't really have that support piece in their life, and we're the only support piece that they have. So I find the community one of the biggest pieces, because now you have a whole community of 40, 50 women who are all trying to make similar changes as you, and you all support each other. So we have a community chat that goes with them often, and women are often sharing tips and tricks with each other, recipe ideas, or, hey, I'm struggling with this. Have you ever dealt with this before? And in the beginning, us as practitioners had to jump in a lot. Now our clients jump in and support each other in there, which is awesome.
That's super awesome. And it's just so nice to have other people going through the same thing. I know
Yes.
one of my struggles, which I would have loved having a community for, is I'm trying to do the right thing and make the right decisions and put it into the family. And then I became like the bad guy. Like I'm the one that's, oh, you and all your restrictions and you and all your like, pickiness. And it's like, well, I'm just trying to feed us healthy. Like that's what I'm implementing. But I almost became the bad guy, Debbie Downer of the family for being that person.
Yeah, we actually just had a call last week on holidays and navigating holidays with your family, right? Because this is probably
Mhm.
one of the toughest times for people to make better
Yeah.
decisions. But we also mapped out the realities of it. I said, listen, let's say you have 10 events over the next 8 weeks with family, etc. Nobody actually had 10 out of our whole community, but let's say you have 10. That's 10 meals out of 8 weeks, right? We get worked up sometimes and get so anxious about all of this when it comes to the holidays. But the reality is, there's still a large majority of our day in our week that we have control over in making the decisions that are more aligned with how we want to feel. So even if you blew it on all 10 of those meals, it still wouldn't make a dent if you focused on the other areas that you have control over. And especially when it comes to making those shifts in your home, it's a lot of the communication of why and how is it making an influence. And even if everybody else in your home is not bought into it, how do you still make that decision for yourself and then let the results that you're getting start to be the influence for everybody else too?
I like that. Do you believe in intermittent fasting?
Yes. So there are some cases, but we usually will actually encourage it in between meals more often than anything, because a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially as Americans, we are so used to having food readily available to us all the time. A lot of our clients don't really go 4 or 5 hours without eating. So we actually encourage people in the beginning to eat a solid breakfast, try to go 4 hours between a meal and see what it feels like to actually be hungry again, and then eat your lunch, go another 4 hours. And then we actually encourage people don't eat a couple hours before bedtime, not as a weight loss thing, but more so as a nervous system regulator and making sure that you're getting quality sleep. So your
Mhm.
body's not trying to digest at the same time. So it usually ends up that people are doing an intermittent fast, even if it's unintentional in that time frame too.
Yeah, I think it's so beneficial. And you're right. Like we got conditioned for snacking, like snacks all day, all the time. As kids, like give them a snack, it's snack time. It's like it's this odd thing where I think we, feel like we need so much food to function. And I think like a really good fast, and,
Yeah.
I can be a little extreme, but I did like a 3-day fast a few times last year. But you start to realize maybe how much food you don't need in order to be okay and survive. Once you can like get through like the blood sugar and the hunger and stuff like that, you realize how much we probably chronically overeat as well.
Well, and the context of that matters too, right? Because it's really tough to overeat whole real food, right? So if
Mm.
you were snacking constantly on meat and, cheese and like veggies and things, it'd be really tough to overeat on all of those things. But we're not. We're usually snacking on packaged foods, cookies, crackers, chips, all those
Mhm.
things, which are highly palatable foods, and you can very easily overeat. And that's usually what we see happening. So we usually try to encourage our clients in having that break, because you can really start to gain mindfulness back and really
Mhm.
get back in touch with your body, because hunger actually is a really uncomfortable feeling for a lot of people to experience. And there's nothing wrong with feeling hunger. You don't want to be starving yourself, obviously, but you can experience hunger because it's your gut actually getting a break. If you're eating all day long, your digestive system is never getting a rest, and we're actually stressing our gut out when we do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I knew someone and like they couldn't go to bed hungry. And so, because then I'm going to be up all night. I'm just thinking about my stomach and it's terrible. And so like they would habitually get into the routine of eating before bed, which is like one of the worst things you could do, because like you were talking about between the digestion and all that kind of stuff. And so it was this odd, like self-perpetuating, like thinking they need to eat before bed so that their stomach isn't hurting so that they can get quality sleep, which was probably working against them and giving them not quality sleep, which was perpetuating this.
Yeah, because we have the whole, especially with babies, right? Give them the cereal at night so that they're fuller longer to sleep. But we got to remember that as an adult,
Mm.
we can't compare our body to a baby or a toddler or a growing child whose body actually is moving through those calories a lot more. And they actually do need to eat more frequently because they have such a small stomach to get the right amount of nutrients and things in their system that they need. But as an adult, we are fully developed. So we're not trying to continue to grow a body.
Mm. Yeah, growing a body, that takes a lot of calories.
Yes.
Not growing a body does not. Do you feel like the older we get, the less we should eat or need to eat?
I don't know if it's necessarily less. I think, what your metabolic response is individual, but we definitely need a protein increase as we age. So women especially, but I mean men too, but we actually do start to atrophy more as we're aging. So we actually do need to eat more protein as we get older and older, because that's going to be incredibly important to us maintaining as much of that lean mass as we can.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's my favorite food group. If you took every food group away and you only left me one, it would be protein.
I would eat a steak, hands down, or wings any day
Or
over.
bacon.
Yes, bacon too. Oh, I mean, when my husband and I first met, eggs and bacon was like he would eat a whole package of bacon himself. He used to be a high level athlete, but yeah, I mean, we could live off of that over anything else.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I think it's amazing. So, also part of your education, and I bring this up because I've become aware of it this year, and now I can really pay attention now that I'm looking for it, is foods that cause inflammation or things you eat, and like actually physically seeing the inflammation in your body and recognizing that's what that is. Do you guys do work around that or focus on that?
We do discuss a lot around, what foods we want to be consuming more of, because I always say it as, there's more of a benefit to your body, right? So if you take in canola oil, is there really a benefit to your body? Not really.
Hmm.
Other than it tastes good as a fat being used in packaged processed foods, right? But your body's not really getting anything out of that oil, versus if I eat an avocado, my body is getting a lot more benefit out of that avocado than the canola oil. So we really have conversations a lot around, we say 80-20 because it's the most commonly used thing, but will usually say 80% of the time you need to be eating food that is going to be a benefit to your body and do something for it. And I always say, like I said, in the beginning, as close to the farm and field as we can get. The less packaged and processed it was, the more it comes straight out of the whole real food source, the better your body is designed to break it down and derive the nutrients from it. So, when it comes to more inflammatory foods, when we say inflammatory foods, I'm always referring to things your body wasn't necessarily designed at the root to be consuming.
Mm.
So if it was made in a lab and it's, cookies, that's vastly different. My body's not breaking those down, and your body is going to feel the effects of it. So it can be tougher on your digestive system. Your body may not necessarily get the nutrients and things that it needs out of that food. So your body is still going to be hungry to get those nutrients. And then when it comes to different oils and things, if it is
Mm.
a, seed-based oil that was created, it can be inflammatory to the body because your body's not meant to break those things down.
Yeah. And this is where like I get to a point where I'm like, I just don't even want to eat out anymore because it could be a really nice restaurant, but I don't know what they're cooking that food with. That it looks like I'm eating good food, but they actually just cooked it in like canola oil, this nice steak. Like, I mean, I don't know what they're doing back there, but you start to wonder because when you're not in total control of seeing what's going into it, what could be putting into it, and you think you're eating healthy, but you're actually not.
And I see a lot of controversy and people saying, well, studies show that, seed oils are really not that bad for you. And like, I don't need a study to tell me that the food that comes from the ground and the proteins that we take in at the most natural source are not the things that are better for my body. Right? They are 100% the things that I was designed to eat. So you don't really need a study to show that. You might see studies that show that it's not that big of a difference in there, but I'm not really looking for, can I play with fire and see if it's going to impact my body or not? I'm looking for optimal health. So that's two very different conversations.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think as a nation, the United States is by far the most unhealthy because, like, if you go over to Italy, they're eating breads and pastas, gelato, espresso, like wine, all the things, but they're healthy, they're thin, they're not suffering from any of the stuff we do because they don't have all the processed stuff like we do over here. So it's interesting. It's like for me, like growing up, oh, I can't have pastas, I can't have breads, like this fat, fat,
Yep.
fat, carb, 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 like it'd be so
Yep.
bad for me. But like when I went to Italy, and granted, I did put on a little weight because it was so good. I ate so much of the food. But like seeing them as a culture and how healthy they are eating these quote unquote foods that I thought would be bad for you, it's not the case. It really is more of the processed nature that makes it bad.
It's funny you say that because I have a practitioner who has celiacs and she cannot eat anything with gluten over here. But she has gone over to Europe and she can consume gluten and she is absolutely fine, even with celiacs. So there is something to be said absolutely about the way that food is made and processed here versus the way that it's done in other countries.
I guess what's the solution here? I guess we just try to educate people through these methods and the people we work with so that they understand.
Yeah, again, I think education's huge, right? The more you
Mhm.
understand, the more you make a different decision, the more you are informed as a buyer, you can start to shift the market, right? But the market is the way it is because the demand is there for it. So if we start to make the demand, we see, more companies like Capello's and Siete and Simple Mills and all that, which are like whole real food packaged items starting to come out and get more and more popular because the demand is there for more and more items like that are getting back to more of the natural source. So the more we can start to do that, the more we can shift the market. But if we keep purchasing all the things, then it's going to still get produced.
How do you handle people who are like, yeah, I really want to eat healthy, but it's so expensive compared to all the rest of food?
It doesn't have to be. It
Yeah.
really depends on how you're looking at it. If you're trying to make a gourmet meal with all whole real food, yeah, it is going to cost a little bit more. But at the same time, I don't eat out as often as I did.
Mhm.
So our grocery bill absolutely is probably higher than someone who's not eating the way that we do. But we're also maybe eating out once to twice a month. We're not eating out that often. We're cooking most of our food at home. And the only times that we are eating out is in more of a social setting, if we're with a neighbor and the kids are playing or something along those lines. So it's just a shift. It was more for us. It was just kind of a trade-off of one thing for the other.
Yeah, well, and I think the big differentiator there, if you could get somebody to understand, is it's quality, not quantity. And I think a lot of people go for the less expensive food because they could get more for the dollar that they're spending. But because they're eating crappier food, they end up eating more of it. Whereas, like you said, if they're eating the whole foods, yes, you're paying more, but you're eating less. So you're actually not.
And we're a family of four. We cannot eat out, even at cheaper places, for less than $60 to $80
Oh,
anymore. So
in Santa Cruz, you couldn't even eat that for two people.
yeah, and that's one meal.
Yeah.
So I could spend that. Our average grocery bill as a family of four is like 300 to $350 a week. So, I mean, that's a third of our grocery bill for one meal instead of the whole week. So when people say it's too expensive, I'm like, what are you comparing that to? I guess
Hmm.
is my first question.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this is where the education comes in. I'm definitely at a point where I'd rather spend more on one really good meal and then go without some of the other things as opposed to, yeah, that quantity mindset that I need to get as much as I can for the dollar I'm spending.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's unfortunately the bigger problem with what we're confronting in America is a lot of people don't have a lot of money and they need to get as much as they can for the amount they're spending without realizing this one thing that we're talking about.
You can source at different areas too. So we buy a
Mm.
cow from a farm. We get raw milk from a farm. We get raw cheese from a farm. We get our eggs from a farm. And it is significantly cheaper for us to do it that way. So we can get a lot more for the dollar going straight to a farm than we do going to a grocery store. I also love that we're supporting a farmer when we do that, right? And I also am getting less processed food. So I know more of the source of where that food is coming from and the process that it went through for me to get it. So everything, nutrient dense wise is always better locally in there as well. So you can source things more locally and save a lot more and get a lot more for your dollar in that too.
Yeah. I love that. I 100% agree. And I think, but this is where people are like, oh, that's a lot of work. That's, it's not convenient. It's not DoorDash. It's not like,
Yeah.
Target right there. It's like, I got to actually do some work and figure this out.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up too, right? Having a healthy lifestyle is not a convenient thing, but convenience is what led to a lot of us not being healthy in the first place. So if we're always looking for convenience, then we will probably reach a stopping point with our health. And we're going to have to allow ourselves to get a little bit inconvenienced if we want to make some shifts and some changes. Even if you're cooking, there's a lot of ways you can tweak it, right? Like when I cook a meal for double our family size. So we've got leftovers for like the next couple lunches and things to eat. That's the way that I bring us convenience and save. So we're not having to cook every meal. So there's a lot of ways you can tweak and work within that, but always sourcing the fast, quick, easy thing, you're going to get fast, quick, easy, cheap food in there too.
Every single time. And I think that so many people, they feel stressed or overwhelmed, and I can't possibly spend all that extra time. But it's like, but if you feel better, you do better, then you have more energy. So you can do better and you do more. And then it doesn't feel quite so stressful because you're fueling your body the right way.
And if we're so overcommitted in so many different directions that we can't cook ourselves a healthy meal a couple times a week, then that's a bigger problem than the healthy meal.
Mm-hmm. So is that something you work on with your clients as well, as the work balance life, and sort of analyzing like where they're expending energy and time on stuff they shouldn't?
I love that you call it expending energy too, because everybody says they want more balance, right? And balance is kind of BS. It doesn't really exist, but we call it more energy management. So how can we manage your energy and your capacity through the week? And then what are the priorities? And if it's not a priority and you don't have the capacity for your main priorities, then maybe there's some things that are getting taken off the list for a period of time. Or where can we ask for support, or how can we do things different? We'll have a lot of people who tell us they don't have the time, but then I'm on my social media at night and I see that they're not missing one of the stories that I'm posting up there. So I'm like, okay, you don't have the time, but you're one of the first 10 people to see all of my Instagram stories. So you're on social media. That's time you can be used doing something else, right? It's not necessarily a matter of time. It's sometimes a matter of the way that time is being used too.
Oh man. And I feel like that is like extremely helpful advice for anybody, because social media, it just sucks people in, man. It takes all their time and energy.
Yes.
Now they're comparing themselves to everybody else. Now they're feeling less than because they're seeing all this amazing stuff. And yeah, it is something. I am so glad I didn't have to contend with that when I was a kid.
I cannot tell you how happy I am that social media was not around when I was a teenager.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine, or cell phones or any of that stuff. Like, man, I grew up in a great time. We had anonymity, we had independence, we had free thinking, and we were not bombarded with all that stuff. We had a critical thinking, like we had to figure shit out on our own. We didn't have like Google right there, like telling us the answers. Like we actually had to like figure it out. And there's a lot to be said for that stuff.
Yes, absolutely. We had to go get a book and look things up if we wanted an answer to something.
Right. Wow. What a concept that is. So what's on the horizon for you? What's your new and exciting things? How can our listeners get a hold of you?
I know we just talked about social media. Instagram is probably the place that's probably easiest to reach me. Because
it's a necessary evil at this point for a lot of us.
It is. You can't have a business and not have a social media in today's world, but that's probably the best place to reach me. It's Brooke Rozzie is my Instagram. We actually started bringing in retreats for our clients. So that's one of the bigger things that we're starting to expand to, because I was starting to see with a lot of our clients, we work, in a completely holistic manner. So nutrition, exercise, movement, and then lifestyle, but we also work deeper into the reason why, right? What are in the coaching piece, why are you doing what you're doing? And we were seeing a lot of clients where we're reaching some points where they were getting stuck and they were feeling frustrated. And there was these cycles in their life that they weren't able to get past. And those cycles in their life the way that they were living, relationships, etc., were impacting the foods and things that they were choosing, and they were going to those things as a result. So bringing in retreats as an accelerated way for us to do a lot deeper work and really accelerate the places of stuck that we can get. Like, I keep doing this all in or all out, and I can't seem to break past this pattern. So those are the people that a retreat is really great for, because we take your cell phones away. It's undistracted time for you to just focus on yourself and get reconnected to yourself and really gain clarity on what it is that you want, what it is that feels really good, and why you operate the way that you do, so that we can start to make some changes in those things. So our next one is coming in May in Scottsdale. Yeah, and that's one of the new things that we started to expand into. And the first one we went into, I was like, I'm never doing this again. And after we left it, I was like, I want to do these every month. It's so much fun.
It is. And I think, the good thing about retreats, and this year, I think was the first year I've actually done several retreats, some women's, retreats and different things, but there is so much power in that group and the bonding and the connection. So not only are you getting like all this amazing stuff for yourself, you're seeing other people go through it, which helps you get more for yourself too, of maybe stuff you wouldn't have seen or heard. And then those relationships that are created from having gone through that together are kind of lifelong. So there's just so much amazing stuff that comes out of retreats. I am such a huge fan of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I went on my first one last year, and I tried to bail on it 4 or 5 times because I was like, this is just a really expensive vacation. And I came home and I was like, I will absolutely do this again, because it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much I got out of it. Every one I do, I've got someone like taking care of me. Are you okay? You need this? But then also doing the work so that you don't have to worry about that stuff, and it's taken care of for you. And then you can then you have the capacity to do what you need to do to elevate yourself.
Yeah, we bring a holistic chef in. All your food is taken care of for you. You have your own private room. You get time to just be with yourself, which can be uncomfortable for some people. And if that's you, that's probably the perfect place for you to go.
Yeah. Is that a 2-day retreat, 3 days, a week?
This one's actually going to be 5. So we're going to go May 1st through the 5th this round. Yeah.
Do you keep their phones that whole time?
Majority of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And most of our clients are 30 to 50. So I'm like, you've had stages of your life where you've gone without a cell phone before, right? So, and I do it partially, one, so they can be undistracted. Now I have my phone. So I always tell everyone, in the case of an emergency, your kids, whatever, somebody can reach me. And mine was taken from me when I went on one. And I always tell people, I'm like, you're going to be okay. We think people need us way more than they do. And I'm like, people, I know that can be a really humbling thing to experience, but people are going to be just fine without you for a couple of days, right? And you need this time to reconnect with yourself. But also, a lot of our clients really recognize how attached to their phone and being available for everybody else they really were. So a lot of times by the end of the retreat, people don't even want their phone back.
I love that. Yeah, we actually take away our client's phone, same. And so they'll go without their cell phones for like 30 days or 60 days. And a lot of them really struggle with getting on board with that. And our demographic is like, 20 to 50 is probably average. So for like the younger people, it's kind of like, what am I going to do? But then you notice the longer they're away from it, the better they feel. And they don't know why they're feeling better, but they're not being bombarded with everything that's in that phone. It's really quite amazing. I mean, and I know a lot of places, they do the electronic detox or whatever they call them, just because until you're away from it, you don't realize how much. And once I did those retreats and I put my phone aside, I've gotten so much better about just doing that and like being okay with it and not caring. And like you said, knowing that everyone's going to survive without me. If there's a true emergency, they'll figure out how to get a hold of me, and also letting down that ego to say, no, you don't have to be there 24/7 for every point in case they ever need you.
When I went on mine, my kids are, my daughter's gonna be 6 and my son is 3. And I was like, I mean, I've gone away from my kids before, but I was like, I've never gone to bed without FaceTiming them. And I was like, so worried. I'm like, oh man, they're going to really miss me. This is going to be really hard. And my husband's like, they're fine. I called on the way home. I walked in and they were totally fine. I was like, man, that was a little humbling, I guess. I mean, I know my kids need me, right? But I thought I was going to be their world.
Yep. That doesn't get better. Wait till they're teenagers
I
and like
know.
then they're in college. It's like, oh, you're like the biggest afterthought ever.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very humbling.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. What an amazing conversation. And I love how detailed you got about this. I mean, obviously I'm 100% on board with everything you said, because I think that if we can get more education out there, we can get people the help, the quality help that they need and want, and understand you got to pay to get it, but now you're invested. So you're going to get more out of it, as opposed to, it's just being given and is taken for granted kind of thing too.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I love having these conversations.
Yeah. So now, do people, to be a client of yours, do they have to be local, or are you able to do all this remotely?
We work with everyone throughout the United States. So I'll have Chelsea, my assistant, give you one of our inquiry forms. So the best place to start is there. Fill out an inquiry form. I will reach out to you personally and chat. We can walk through what you're experiencing and see if it's a good fit for you.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. I encourage everybody to do it, especially if you don't have anything locally.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Have an awesome day.
You too.